Welcome to CS Week Success Stories, second Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern webinar series. These webinars are the top-rated workshops from our attendees from Conference 39 held last May in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am John Sild, and I am with CS Week, and I will be your moderator today. Denise Mullendore will be assisting, and she will be your host. We invite you to attend CS Week and Conference 40. It will be April 25th through the 29th, 2016 at the Phoenix Convention Center in Phoenix, Arizona. This program will be recorded and available for playback, along with our other archived presentations. You can find it under the Educational Venues webinar link on our website. Attendees are encouraged to upload questions in the Q&A panel on the lower right of your screen. Please be sure to click the All tab to make sure that I will see your question. We will wait until the end of the presentation to answer questions. Today's program, Best Practices in CIS Implementation, Large Utility. Let me introduce today's speakers, Morlon Bell-Izzard, Director, Customer Care at Baltimore Gas and Electric Company. Morlon is the Director of Customer Care, which oversees call center operations, training, quality assurance, and operations support. She has held multiple leadership positions, including Business Project Manager of BGE's Customer Care and Billing Implementation. BGE successfully developed and deployed Customer Care and Billing and Meter Data Management in January 2012 after a 30-month Big Bang approach. Morlon has a Bachelor's of Science degree in Commerce with a major in accounting from the University of Virginia. We also have online with us Michael Poncia, Project Director, Solution One at Pepco Holdings. Mike is the Program Director for Solution One Project, a multi-year program which includes the replacement of 2 legacy billing systems with the state-of-the-art commercial system. Mike is responsible for the design, development, and deployment of the SAP Customer Relationship Management and Billing System, which will enhance the company's ability to serve approximately 2 million electric and gas customers in the Pepco Holdings service territory. Pepco Holdings successfully deployed the new CIS system on January 5th, 2015, after a 28-month multi-phased approach. Mike has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in civil engineering from Drexel University. We want to welcome our 2 speakers, Morlon and Mike. We will begin with Morlon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. In the next several minutes, I will be discussing with you BGE's implementation of the Customer Care and Billing System. We're going to cover an overview of what was implemented, our organizational structure, the timeline in which our project operated, and then we're going to share some tips as we were driving to our solution and what the areas we focused on. I will also give you some insights into business readiness and our post-go-live highlights, as well as the key items that contributed to the project's success. BGE embarked upon a Big Bang approach for our implementation. On this slide, you will notice that we implemented a number of products in January 2012. We were the first U.S. company to implement CC&B and MDM simultaneously. So we were pioneers in that there were a lot of integrations that needed to be built in collaboration with our partners. In addition, we also had our Market Transaction Manager, which is a tool used to support our energy choice programs where suppliers provide the commodity to our customers. And we also implemented reporting solutions at the same time. So all 5 of these products were implemented in January at the same time. When you look at our timeline, this illustrates over the course of the 30 months that a number of things changed during the course of the project. When we embarked and established our business case, we partnered with our Smart Grid program because BGE had made a decision to invest in smart grid technology and infrastructure. So our financial, there wasn't a really strong financial business case, but rather it was setting a foundational system in place that we felt would be strong to support what was envisioned for smart grid, as well as different rate structures and pricing options for our customers. When you look at the spectrum of changes that occur over the year in implementing a project of this scale, a lot of things will change during the course of your project. And as a project team, one of the things that you should be aware of is to revisit the impacts of those changes on your project schedule and budget, as well as your resources. And these are just highlighting some of the things that occurred during the implementation of our CC&B project. One of the items that you'll notice here is the different releases of the Oracle product, and we had to make decisions on which release we were going to land on and implement as the product was still evolving. And then we also had our smart grid approval that lagged a bit as well on the timeline. So there were some implications we had to consider as we were going throughout the life of the project. Looking at our organizational chart, we had a very strong executive support model throughout the course of our project. You will notice that there are two vice presidents, one on the business side and one on the IT side, who were our program managers and our primary executive sponsors. And we had a very strong relationship of business and IT. So the program management office, the project was run by myself as the business lead, and I had a co-lead who was an IT leader as well. We had a mid-level advisory group, which you will see on the organization chart. We escalated issues to this group on a monthly basis. We also approached that group for key business decisions and getting buy-in all along the course of the project. Likewise, we had an executive sponsor team, and here at BGE, almost every executive was touched by the implementation of CC&B, and therefore a lot of them were not only on the sponsor team, the executive sponsor team, but they were actively involved in the project. Below the program management office, you will see several sub-teams. Our approach was to have dual leadership. Generally, we had an internal lead, whether it was a business or an IT resource from BGE, partnered with one of our external leads, and we had a number of partners that helped us implement this project. So each team had dual leadership. And that really proved to be a benefit because there were a lot of strengths that each partner brought to the table in implementation of the project. We originally planned for approximately 120 resources with an assumption that 50% of those resources would be internal, that meaning business as well as IT resources. And after we came out of our design phase, we actually peaked at 250 resources. And many of our resources, we had several onshore, but we also had many offshore resources, especially for our development activities. As we moved through each phase of our project, we modified the sub-teams to some extent because of the needs at the time. So initially, when we launched the project, for example, our conversions team wasn't as active, so as we moved through the different phases, certainly that became a critical team that had to be in play and functioning within our project. As we focused on driving quality solution, this was definitely a theme throughout our project, is we know we had an aggressive timeline. Initially, our timeline was 26 months. And as you heard, we implemented in 30. But we were focused on ensuring that the solution we delivered was of high quality and would be functioning on day one. So there are several things we did which I outlined on this slide. I'll highlight a few of those now. With regard to bill compares, we looked at over 1 million CC&B bills as compared to our legacy system, and we leveraged a bill compare tool that was built to work for this project team. In addition, we looked at several manual bills, and we looked at approximately 2,000 of those during the course of our test and doing the same type of comparison. Mock conversions and dress rehearsals were very important and key activities that helped us to successfully deploy during our cutover weekend. and we had 12 mock conversions, and our goal was to be able to do the conversions within a 48-hour period. By the time we reached Mach 7, we were achieving that goal, and we were, at that point, refining our data. One of the integral activities with our mock conversions is we brought our business owners in play, and they helped to control the data, to confirm the data control points and make sure they were within acceptable thresholds that were defined with their input. With regard to our dress rehearsals, we had 4 dress rehearsals ahead of the January deployment, which proved beneficial, and it involved all members of our project team and the different roles they would play at Go Live and post-Go Live. Business readiness, we had over 50 business resources that were involved with our project and the different phases. We had our business resources involved with user acceptance testing. So there was a combination of internal and external resources, but we did have a significant investment of our internal resources involved with these activities to assist with change management. We also had a team focused on capacity planning, and we were trying to forecast what was the level of exceptions and to-dos that would arise once we went live, and to make adjustments to our staffing that would support that. And at the time that we launched the project, we had over 1,000 users that we trained on various skills in order to function with the new system. And training ranged from low-end users needing 20 hours to your higher-end users needing 120 hours of training. Next, I want to go into our test plan. As you see, these are standard phases of testing. At the point that we started testing in October, we did reach back to the business for additional resources because we wanted our business users to become very comfortable with what the new system looks like. So the business added approximately 20 to 25 resources that would participate in system testing, and they moved through each of the phases of testing along with us, in addition to the core project team. This proved to be a benefit because those folks were able to be advocates, they were better prepared, and it just helped with a lot of the change management that ensued after we went live. I want to highlight a few things about our test plan. We had over 100 process areas we were covering, so there were over 3,000 test scripts that were implemented. There were 30 legacy systems that we conducted end-to-end testing over for transactions. And then we also had 20 external third parties that also had to make changes, and there were resources dedicated to ensuring that our testing was synced up and that the communications between us and our external third parties was ongoing throughout each of the test phases. With regard to our batch processes, we did perform batch, which was at that time over 200 jobs, for all 21 build groups. And with one of our batch processes, we did not only the 21 build groups, but we followed it by 10 additional build groups so that we could simulate the 2-month cycle. So you bill customers, you have payments apply, and we have bills to come out again so that we could see how that would look in production. We also analyzed to-dos and exceptions, and prior to go live, we had over 900 unique messages that we created job aids for and we tested. There were more that surfaced post-go live, and we had to handle those on the spot. The couple of months before we actually went live, we conducted a disaster recovery exercise to simulate and identify any lessons learned there, and that was once again a successful activity that we continue to conduct every couple of years to ensure that our disaster recovery plans are functioning and are effective. We had a great deal of partnering with our communications team, and we had to develop what was our strategy. We were not planning to significantly change our customers' bills. We wanted to make it as seamless as possible, and I will say one of the surprises that we had after go live in the very first couple of weeks was with our budget billing customers. There were some small changes in language that really confused our customers, and we had to respond, and we did so in a number of ways. We modified our talking points. that the CSRs were using. We created a video to help customers understand what the budget billing language was, and we also had blogs and was on social media to assist our customers. So we had very targeted messaging that was reactive on the back end, but on the front end, we had different messages depending on what a customer needed to do. So for example, all customers had their account number changed, and that was very important. And we alerted them to that. There were some customers who were online customers who needed to reestablish their banking information once we went live. They were targeted in a certain way as well. So the different segments of our customers, we had different messages to help them be prepared for that cutover. In addition, before we went live, we had a group of cross-section of folks within the company develop what-if scenarios. Once we went live, what if this occurred and what would be our response, so that we weren't in a firefighting mode when we cut over and situations happened that we could have prepared for in advance. So we had a number of those, approximately 40 of those created and ready in case we needed them. And I will say we did not have to pull many of those off the shelf. We only had to pull a few off the shelf, and the one that was the surprise was the budget billing because we had not prepared for that confusion that our customers experienced. Post-go live, I'll continue with some of the highlights here. When we went live, we had a team, certainly a support team in place to respond quickly to issues as they arose, but it was very important because it was very customer-facing instantaneously that our communications team remained in play, along with legal. I will say we probably had about 3 weeks where we were highly engaged with different customer issues and making sure the messages were clear, and if they weren't, clarifying those. One of the items, we made sure that our frequently asked questions online was updated on a regular basis. We did leverage predictive dollar messages and letters for targeted segments. For example, there were some questions that our check-free customers were having, and we needed to clarify how their interactions with check-free would work with the new system. And we also leveraged IVR messaging and updated that accordingly, especially as it related to the wait times being longer than usual. So really, we were in a very robust mode for approximately 3 weeks with any communications, whether internal or with our customers. But we did have the team in place, and they were prepared. One of the other areas that was very important and quite successful for our project was in business readiness. We had several areas highlighted on the next slide. You will see training and proficiency. We developed a training program, and as I indicated earlier, depending on if you were a high-end or a low-end user, determined how much training you had. A lot of job aids and manuals were developed in the course of that. When we extended the duration of our project, our core training had been completed, so the project team had to figure out what were we going to do in that 4 to 5 month period there, and we decided to do refresher training, and that proved to be beneficial. So you'll see different things that we did with refresher, and it wasn't just a one-size-fit-all. For some areas, we did business process walkthroughs. For others, we had test labs. For some groups, we had them engaged in ORT. So there were a number of things that we targeted based on the groups of users that we were going to be implementing and using the system. We also updated our internal help file with a lot of materials, whether it was to-dos or just how-tos on our core skills that were needed in order to navigate the system. With regard to capacity planning, we did have an org redesign team that you saw on the org chart, and we knew that because we were trying to go out of the box and standardize many processes, that it would likely lead to some organizational changes. And we had an org redesign team that was comprised of a cross-section of mid-level leaders throughout BGE, and they made recommendations on what the organizational structure should be longer term. We developed that, recommended it up to our executive team, and we implemented that org structure 6 months after our go live. We decided that it was too much to change org structure, leadership at the time of go live, so that was pushed to 6 months after go live. So there were a number of business readiness activities that we had to engage our users throughout the course of the project and to try to keep the information fresh in their minds. The one area that we wished we had done a little more of was to engage and have first-line leaders more engaged as we were going through this. Many of them were certainly balancing operational needs, so that was the challenge that they experienced, was operational needs versus being highly engaged with the project in this way. Some of the highlights post-go-live for our CC&B and MDM implementation is we have been able to bill all 21 bill groups each month since we've gone live. So for us, it's going on 4 years now, and we have not had hiccups with being able to bill, nor to complete our core functions. And this was a question we got often when we cut over, is how do you define success? And we said as long as the system was able to complete the core functions, that it was certainly a base measure of success. So being able to handle customer inquiries, set up customers, bill, process payments, those are core functions that have worked consistently and effectively for us each night. Another success and highlight for us was the nightly batch processes to generate our bills and turn-off notices and different letters. Those processes functioned effectively. We did performance tune them in our first couple of months to work within certain windows when the timing was a little off, but that was very successful for us. Our reports were being run without significant performance issues, and this is another one where we had to tweak and tune the timing of the reports. So we had some deadlines that finance needed information, so we worked with them in order to ensure that they got what they needed, and we kept our reporting team in play certainly longer than we did the rest of our project team post-go live. Our reporting team we held on to for 4 months, so from January through April, because we wanted to make sure we got through each monthly close. We also had the merger with Exelon to happen, so we had a stub period close as well as our first quarter reporting cycle. So those resources were held for all of those reasons to make sure we were able to successfully complete each of those cycles. The rest of the project team was in play for 2 months post-go-live. We were planning for a 3-month post-production support period, but many of them after 2 months were able to migrate to their regular operating roles, and so that was much better than expected. But the key as we were going through these 2 months and 4 months was being very responsive and having teams in play to respond to issues when they occurred. So we felt we had very timely follow-up, and certainly we had to prioritize defects because you can't get to everything at once, and I think the team, along with the business areas, were able to effectively prioritize those. On this next slide, this is a little bit of a timeline after we went live of some of our key activities, which I've highlighted several of those for you as well, but those I haven't talked about I'd like to hit on right now. If you look at our key milestones, the one thing that given the timing of our implementation, we implemented January 3rd, and certainly in April is when winter moratoriums are lifted, and we begin more of our collections cuts. So from January until we got to April, we did not have a lot of collections-related cuts because of that moratorium. So in April, we began to see how the system would function really with the collections cuts and the severance throttle that we put in place to be used for high-risk accounts and certainly determining severance activities. On the scale below that, you will notice a number of things. We highlighted some of the challenges. We mentioned the account number changes. Even though we told customers about it in many cases, customers continued to make payments with old account numbers, and that caused some challenges in our payment processing area. The online bank verification, typically the turnaround was 2 to 3 days, and because of the significant number of customers who had to re-establish themselves online, That took a lot longer, so that was ranging in the 5 to 7 day range in the first 2 weeks, so we had a lot of customer contacts related to that. Certainly the proficiency curve, had to grow because it was a new system. There were longer wait times from the call center, and that was certainly in the first week was in the 9-minute range before you could get to an agent, which was significantly longer than what we've had before. And we had to make some adjustments, certainly, as well as the proficiency curve increased, people were able to move through those calls faster and the wait times were reduced. The one thing that surprised us, and we learned this as the first set of turnoff notices kicked out, we decided to change the color of the turnoff notice. Instead of it being red or pink looking to some customers, it was kind of in our green tone, which is generally a color that we have a lot of our BG materials in. And when we changed that, customers were calling in not realizing they had a turnoff notice because they didn't see the red. So that was kind of a surprise to us that we had to revert back to the red and pink tones on our turnoff notices to get the customers' attention who were in that category. There were a number of things we had to do to improve in our first 6 months and even a year, and you'll see those highlighted on this slide. We did fine-tune system performance and occasional slowness issues. We implemented some process changes that helped with handle times and managing exceptions. We also implemented an online form for our service orders, so move-in, move-out work, as well as payment plan requests, which is a high-volume transaction, making it a little easier for our customers. And we also improved in how we work together, business and IT, to prioritize and correct defects as they arose. So that process probably became better than it was pre-go live because we were striving to keep as close to out of the box as possible, even though we had a high number of customizations. One of our key goals that drove improvement quickly was regulatory driven. We went live in January, and we had a regulatory requirement to have service level at 75% by the end of the second quarter of that same year. So a number of enhancements were undertaken in order to ensure that we could achieve that, and we did. So that was a significant challenge, but we made that and turned that around. As I wrap up, I want to highlight for you on this slide, there were several key factors that contributed to the success of the CC&B and MDM implementation. And I will say first and foremost, it was the executive support and involvement. We had executives who were very well aware of every challenge we had as soon as we had it. And that assisted with just rallying people around getting through those obstacles. The collaboration between the business area and IT groups was phenomenal. Having business involved early and committed throughout the project. So it started with our business process designs, and it continued all the way through our cutover. Having several test cycles and phases was also another factor to our success, as well as the test practices we had with the mock conversions and our dress rehearsals. We had a very focused change management team and training team, and so the materials we developed were very comprehensive, they were engaging, and it caught the attention of the end users. So those were some key factors to BGE's successful implementation of CC&B and MDM. At this time, I'm going to hand the rest of the program over to Mike.
Thank you, Morlon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone today, and I'm advancing the slide here. So we'll briefly talk a little bit about Pepco Holdings, our company. We'll describe the project, some of the key milestone dates, some of the decisions that we faced, and the back part of the presentation focuses on some of the challenges, the complexities, key differentiators in the project. We've had a lot of very similar experiences to what Morlon described, in a lot of ways. To introduce our company, we've got about 2 million customers, and we have multiple jurisdictions. So we serve customers in Delaware, in D.C., in Maryland, and New Jersey. We operate under multiple brands, Atlantic City Electric, Delmarva Power, and Pepco. And the total population served is about 5.6 million. On the following slide around some quick facts, I think the key point here is that we do operate in a pretty demanding, I'd say, regulatory environment and multiple regulatory jurisdictions. As Morlon mentioned, the acquisition with Exelon during the journey at BGE, as our project at Pepco Holdings was pretty far underway. We also were in part of the acquisition by Exelon. And the reason I point that out is as we were set to go live in the early part of January 2015 was right around the time when all our various executives were testifying on behalf of the merger. So the stakes were really high in terms of getting the project right, managing all the risks, managing the reputation. Briefly to describe the project, so we had two legacy systems, both about 30 to 35 years old systems that were pretty much homegrown legacies, one for Atlantic City Electric and Delmarva, a separate system for Pepco. So our objective was to bring both of those systems together for a new system. Our overall project was 28 months from the design right on through going live, and we went live as planned on January 5th. In terms of the go-live date, that I did want to mention that we had a 10-day cutover window. So to convert from the legacy systems to the new system, that was done over a 10-day window, and the January 5th date worked really well for us because during that 10 days we were only open for business 3 or 4 days because of the holidays and New Year's. So it was part of the reason that we selected that date was it was a minimal impact on the customers. Also, from our financial perspective, it enabled us to have a full calendar year or fiscal year under the old system, start a new year in the new. So I know a lot of our financial folks like that aspect. We also had a number of interfaces. Interfaces on a project like this are always a major risk. So we had 50 different systems or 170 interfaces. One of the things that were really important for us was to standardize our business processes. So although we had multiple brands, part of our guiding principle was around one process, one system, one way to try to standardize the way that we were conducting business across all of our jurisdictions, and having a single common flexible and adaptable platform was is really one powerful way to kind of get there in terms of driving a common set of business processes. Our training was quite a challenge with 1,375 end users. We had roughly 20 locations across our property, including a couple third-party call center vendors that we do business with. So it was quite a challenge. The next slide is our. It's not the entire schedule, but it more zeroes in on, I'd say, the last year before go live. So let me just highlight a couple things here. On a major project like this, every phase of the project, from the design to the build to the test to the deploy, every phase has distinct entry criteria and exit criteria that need to be met. So having that discipline is a really, really important thing, and kind of helps you stay focused and stay on track. Similar to BGE, we had 9 mock data conversions, and so each time you're doing that, your objective is to have higher volumes converted and higher accuracy, such that by the time you go live, you've done that a number of times, and your accuracy is in that high 99% range. And anything that has not converted, you need to be able to reconcile that. So that's the focus in those mock conversions. We had about a full year of testing or more in our 28 months. We dedicated 4 what we call ORTs, operational readiness tests. What they are is you're basically running your new system as though it's in production. you're running, all aspects of the system, and you're fine-tuning as you go along. The dress rehearsals are another aspect. What the dress rehearsals are is it's your opportunity to practice that full 10-day cutover. So our cutover plan had close to 3,000 unique steps that had to be followed. So we would, similar to BG, we would time how long it takes for the data conversion, how long does it take to place the existing system in read-only, do your conversion, load your various service orders, complete your financial close and transactions, and then come out the other end and go live. So that's what those dress rehearsals are all about. And again, we selected the go live because we thought it was the best minimal impact for our customers. On the slide on challenges and complexities, the reason I wanted to have that in here is because as any of you look at, you're considering your own CIS replacement, it becomes really important to understand what are those drivers of complexity. So for us, the multiple jurisdictions, we have 1 million AMI meters, but yet we have in New Jersey, we do not have AMI. So we need to accommodate both. We happen to be gas and electric, not in each brand, but in our Delmarva brand. Deregulation is another complexity. We have about 400,000 customers that select alternative suppliers, so all that has to be designed in. Solar power in our region is gaining tremendously in popularity, so net energy metering, dynamic pricing, all that has to be accommodated. The last bullet, institutional memories, what that means is around the year 2000, Atlantic City Electric and Delmarva combined to a single system, and that did not go so well for our company. So we had some negative media attention, some billing errors, et cetera. So we were well aware of what it takes to manage the risks on a project like this. In terms of some of the differentiators in the appendix, and I will get to it, but having a good solid set of guiding principles and an effective governance structure. Our governance structure was very, very similar to what Morlon laid out at BG&E. And I think that advisory group, we had mid-level managers across the business, is a really pivotal part of the governance because they can also do a lot of work ahead of go live, cleanup work, process improvement work, independent of the project team, but supporting the project team. So that's really important. We had somewhat of a co-lead effort like Baltimore Gas, but really ours was, it was run by business folks. Both the business readiness, the entire project team rolled up to our Vice President of Customer Service or Customer Care. IT was pivotal, excellent partners, but it was viewed more of as a business project, is how we kind of viewed the project internally. We did do a fair amount of outreach to our regulators. We have 4 local unions, various stakeholders, so that was a really important part of the project and keeping all the various stakeholders informed. The last bullet, relative to going live, it's another really good area of emphasis because as you get closer to go live, we had 54 specific criteria that had to be met. So we had a dashboard, red, green, and yellow. As we got closer, we began the process of rehearsing all those decisions with the key executives, including the risks of having a particular criteria as maybe yellow or red. And that pays a lot of dividends in terms of getting the executives on board, getting their support, and having them get a good feel for how we're managing risks. I did mention that we had a solid year of testing, and again, we didn't let the schedule drive us. We tried to manage the schedule. It's really important. The reason we also wanted to know the complexities, when we partnered, in our case we partnered with a system integrator. When we did that partnership, we evaluated multiple system integrators, and we asked them as part of their bid response to come back at us at what they felt our level of complexity was, because we felt it was really important that our integrator have a healthy respect for all the various complexities, and we wanted to ensure that they did that. The interfaces we learned from talking to other utilities are problematic. They are very risky. Our interfaces had various owners. Think about the banks, our outage management system, meter data management system, all the various systems that you interface with, our IVR. If you're like us, we had, in some cases, multiple owners of those interfaces. Some interfaces, we couldn't find an owner, internally. So we had a single point of accountability, full-time on the project, who was devoted to all of the interface work. And I thought that was a pretty good differentiator for us. Internal auditing, controls, SOX controls, all that is also critical on a project like this. So we did form a dedicated team there. We had to supplement that team because we just did not have enough internal staff there where we really needed. So we work with KPMG and some other partners on that. Last thing I'll mention on this slide is we did establish a key vendor forum. We learned that lesson from some other utilities, and what that was is for some of our key vendors, we had vice presidents or director levels meet with us monthly to review where we were on a project, any risks, et cetera. That was designed to be a barrier removal group. We did not want to meet the executives of some of our key vendors if and when there were major problems. We wanted to meet them early and often during the project so that together we would collaborate, and that worked out very, very well for us. Morlon also mentioned the business readiness focus. Our business readiness lead reported up through our Vice President of Customer Care. That worked out really well because we had, we did our staff augmentation. So we hired extra call center representatives and extra billing representatives starting 3 or 4 months from go live, in some cases a little bit earlier. So when we hit the ground running, when we went live, we did not have a drop-off in our telephone service factor. Our billing was overstaffed in order to handle exceptions and the things that we anticipated. We did have a command center, very similar to BGE. We kept our command center in place for about 3 or 4 months, over 60 floor walkers spread throughout our locations. Most of those command centers were support folks that were on the project that were very knowledgeable, and so that served us very well. We were bringing people in from multiple locations. So think about our various. We had employees from Delaware, from Virginia, from the D.C. area, from New Jersey, from a lot of geographies. We chose by design to have the project centrally located in Delaware, and we were fortunate enough to have space that we were able to alter for our project. So we put a lot of time and effort in this space, and I think it's important. It's an important consideration when you're looking at a project like this. We also had a reward incentive program, so it was over and above the normal corporate utility type programs. It was geared directly towards the project staff. We set our goals. The incentives paid off twice a year, depending on how we did on our goals. In terms of success criteria, we had asked Accenture, who we partnered with as a system integrator. They had developed a general sense of success criteria from multiple other clients. So before we went live, we had a pretty good idea what success looked like based on Accenture's experience. And I won't go into details here, but you'll see the areas in green here where, how we made out. And we made out pretty well. And I think in large part, it's the many things that we covered on both of these slide decks, being really meticulous with your planning, meticulous with the follow-through. Let me go to the next slide. Since go live, and I do have the opportunity to speak at CS Week coming up this April, and we've been asked at PHI to talk about the project, from the perspective of 1 year later. What's next? How are things working? So I'm going to cover a lot of that in the workshop in April coming up. But in general, we did really well. We continue to perform well. Our batch processing, as Morlon mentioned, that's normal to tweak that, fine-tune it. So that's working really well for us. All of our customer service metrics performed well. We do have higher exceptions. When you think about homegrown systems over the years, your systems they're pretty good systems. Part of our rationale was just the fact that our systems were so aging and costly to maintain. But when you put a new system in, like an SAP system, you're going to have more exceptions because there's naturally more controls built in the system. So accounts get hung up, and in a lot of cases, it's all for the right reasons. But managing those exceptions is challenging, and it takes a lot of work to do that. But overall, we've done well. I would say in terms of some of the takeaways, number one, just don't fear a project like this, but have the healthy respect for the risks. The relentless planning in every single phase is important. We did try to minimize change, so in our case, customers did get new account numbers. Our IT folks built pivot tables that would recognize the old account number, both on our mobile apps, online, and IVR. So if customers did not remember their new or had an old invoice, we did have some pivot tables on that. Our billing invoices had all the same look and feel at each jurisdiction, with the exception of Washington, D.C. during the project, and we put the full court press on, collaborating with our regulatory staff and our regulators, and they approved the common format. So by the time we went live, we had one common format for all jurisdictions, and that was important. I would say another key is just the overall rigorous testing. So I'm going to move towards quickly in the appendix, just to let you know, we did list our guiding principles, and they serve really the purpose of the guiding principles is to help us in the overall decision making. And then there's a slide on the look and feel. The old system obviously was sort of a point and click. The new system is, point and click. Our legacy was command centric, and this just wanted to give you a little bit of a look and feel on the new system. So I'm going to stop there, and I appreciate your attention, and I'm sure we'll be opening up to questions.
Yes, that's correct. Great job, guys. Great presentation. I do have several questions for you, and I'll start out with Michael. Let's see, our first question is going to be geared to you. Now that your system has been live for over a year, is there anything you would have done differently on the project?
And again, I do plan to cover a lot of this coming up at the next CS week, which is April 28th. But I would say a number of things. Pay special attention to all the reports. We had some reports. We identified 100 reports after we went live. We had some reports that were not previously identified, or we needed to make some major changes to reports. So reporting is traditionally a risk area. That would be one. I'm going to talk later on at the next CS week about the project team. I believe we unwinded the team after about 90 days, and if I were to do one of these again, I'd consider leaving that project team in place for even a solid year. And we can talk about why that is at another time. But I think pay close attention to how long you keep your team in place. For us, the third-party suppliers was an issue. It was a challenge, and I think if I did it again, I would probably double the number of test scripts aimed at getting that part of the project right. So I'm going to stop there because there's there's a number of other areas, but I don't want to take up too much time on that one question.
Okay, great. And we look forward to hearing more on your presentation at CS Week. The second question, I'm going to just go ahead and since you spoke last, all these questions are coming in right now for you. Morlon, I've got some for you after this one. Let's see, Michael, how did you ensure that the work done by key vendors was coordinated and aligned?
In large part, this key vendor meeting was really a really good forum to use. We had all the key vendors on. We started to do, in the beginning it was driven by PHI, and then after maybe 3, 4, 5 months, we kind of flipped it. and we said, no, I think you vendors need to for risks, your schedule impacts, your concerns, and from the time we made that change, they became very productive, and it was a good way to raise alarms or flags. The integrator participated in those calls, and also provided a lot of guidance. So the number one way we kept all the vendors aligned was having that forum, attended by our CIO, Vice President of Customer Care, and myself.
Okay, very good. All right, Morlon, I've got one for you. Your question was, how long did it take you to stabilize?
Okay, I think that's been a difficult question for BGE to answer because we had so many releases that related to smart grid post-go live. I would say the time in which it took areas to stabilize was different. So, for example, call center reps, really we focused on them in the first year and improving their efficiency. So it probably in the year-plus range for them. With regard to our billing and our back office folks who were dealing with the exceptions and the higher volumes, because we had a steady stream of new to-dos and exceptions that were kicking out as a result of the different enhancements that were put in place as more the smart grid program, we did not focus on them initially because service level was a priority and call center operations was a priority in year one. In year two, it took them, once we focused on them, probably about a year. I will say that the billing area, when you look at delayed bills and what we were pre and post, we are running a lot more efficiently in that space than we were pre-go live. And so that has been, I would say, one of the big success stories. So had we focused on them, it probably would have looked like a year as well. In our payment processing area, that we anticipated to be like a less than 6 months, but because of the summary billing program that BGE has where multiple accounts, a customer can have multiple accounts and it can get summarized, we had some challenges in that space. So I would say that looked like, more like a year and a half because we had to troubleshoot how to solve problems that were related to that group of customers. But for residentials, the biggest challenge was really, in some of them, not adapting to the account number change. So I will say it ranged, but it is distorted in BGE's case because we've had a lot of good things happen in our customer space since the implementation of CC&B, which was the foundational first piece of the puzzle, and there have been a number of changes since then. And right now we're in a lot of implementations related to e-channels, so it's a little difficult to say, when have we felt like we're stable?
I gotcha. I totally agree. All right. Here's a question that has just come in. What were your backfill assumptions?
Okay. With regard to our project, we had a 50% backfill. So for every 2 resources that were placed on the project, we could backfill 1. And that was the common backfill assumption for employees. Some areas choose to put employees there and others chose staff aug. So it was a mixture of what the different business areas selected to do in that case.
Okay, very good. All right, well, in looking at our time, we want to be aware that we're closing in on the top of the hour, and we want to be mindful of each and every individual that's on this call, their time, and we want to close our session at 2 o'clock today. We want to thank Morlon and Michael for their presentations. What a wonderful job. We'd love to see you all at CS Week. I know that they are planning on being there. Conference 40 is in 7 weeks. Online registration is open now. You can save $100 by registering before April 19th. So visit our website, csweek.org, for more information. So at this time, we're going to thank our speakers, Morlon and Michael, and all the attendees for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at CS Week Conference 40 in a few weeks. At this time, this concludes our webinar.